worked for the post office. And I love my father to death and whatnot. He's dead now. I didn't love him. I didn't kill him. He died. I just loved him to death. But he worked at the post office and he hated every fucking night working, every weekday night of the week that he had to go to work. He was a night shift guy. So he worked from 11 o'clock at night till 7 in the morning. And so periodically he would tell my mom, like, I don't want to go to work tonight. I can't do it and shit. Can you call out for me? And my mom would go into a separate room in our house with my father, and they would come out, and my father had the biggest smile on his face. Yes, he probably got blown, but that's not the point of the story. The point of the story is they went in that room and they made the call. My mom would make the call to his work and shit. We could never hear the call because they were like, you got to be quiet. Everyone's got to be quiet. Then we would just go to the other side of the house while we make the call and shit. So over the course of my dad's life, my dad, you know, got his health would fail. He was diabetic and shit. He lost some toes. He also had heart attacks and strokes. He wanted to get away from fucking work, man. So he would start like more and more every week telling my mom, like, can I just take off tonight? Soon my dad was working like 2 weekdays, 2 nights out of the week as opposed to 5 and shit. He would have it. He just didn't want to do it anymore. And my mom got to a point where she was like, I'm not making this call for you anymore. If you don't want to go to work, you have to fucking make the call. I'm not calling in. I'm not doing it. My father was terrified of this fucking call. So much so that he turned to his teenage son and he was like, will you make the call? And I was like, fuck yes. I've been hearing about this call my whole fucking life. Are you kidding me? This call is power. Fuck yeah, I'm going to do it, man. This is adult responsibility. So my father sat me down and rehearsed me harder than I've rehearsed an actor in my entire fucking life, man. He was like, this is what you say. They're going to answer the phone. You say this. You say, Don Smith is not coming in tonight. He's not feeling well. And then when they ask you for more information, you look at me, you repeat the question, and I'll mouth the answer, and then you tell them. It was a whole fucking thing, man. So I was ready as fuck for this, man. Me and my dad were going into this operation together. The phone call that my mother had spent a lifetime fucking making that we could never hear, I was about to be privy for. I was about to fucking make the phone call myself, man. So my father dials the phone, hands it to me like the phone is toxic and shit like that, and he goes, go. And so I have the phone in my ear, and this is exactly what happened. Voice goes, dispatch. I said, Don Smith won't be in today. He goes, all right, and he hung up. My father goes, what did he say? And I was like, very little. He said, all right. He goes, oh, thank God. And my father became a different person, man. Like a completely different individual. Everything, the weight of the world was lifted off of his fucking shoulders and he could be human again. He wasn't living in the fear of what happens if I don't fucking go to work. What if I'm not responsible? What if they give me shit at work and stuff like that? Suddenly that was all gone. That phone call, making that phone call made all the difference in my life. Because I said, I will do whatever I fucking can in this lifetime. I will die on the cross of trying to do something new and original and fun rather than work for any institution that makes me feel like that. So I spent my life playing because I saw my father working and shit. And so far, so good. He died young, age 67. And I had the same heart attack that he had, but I had it much younger than him. But I lived through it. It was kind of 7 years ago at this point. So I feel like in many ways, you know, when you're somebody's kid, as a parent, I'm a parent now, you hope that your kid's life is at least 50% better than your life was. That's the drive, right? You're always trying to make shit at least 50% better for your kids than you had it and stuff. And I didn't even have it bad, but I'm just talking about the trappings of life and shit like that. I feel like I was able to improve my life at least 50% upon where my dad's was, but it wouldn't have happened without my dad. My dad was the guy that would take me to the movie theaters just like this, man. Like the one I bought in Jersey, the one I own, that was the movie theater he used to take me to. And my father was a non-communicative person. He wasn't like somebody on TV who pours his heart out to his kid, wears his heart on his sleeve. That's the parent that I am to my child. You know, I fucking wear my heart on my sleeve. I tell her anything's possible and shit like that. More of her friend than her parent. In fact, when the kid finally moved out a couple of years ago, I had this existential crisis where I was like, oh my God, it's over. Like my parenting is done. And I was like, kiddo, was I a good dad? And she was like, She goes, how do I put this? She goes, I never really thought of you as my father as much as my fun older brother who had all the money. And I was like, I didn't bump into that at all, man. That was that's what I was going for and shit like that. My father didn't go for that relationship with me. He didn't have that option. He didn't even know that was possible and shit. Now, we had a better relationship than he had with his fucking father. But at the end of the day, my father was quiet. You know, my sister swears that I stole Silent Bob from him. But how my father communicated to me, his love language, as we say nowadays, was in a room like this. He would take me to the movies, and he would show me movies that he thought I could handle at a young age. I was his movie buddy. And he understood. Like, you know, at one point, my mom had a conversation with him, said, you're missing all your kids growing up because you work at night. And I understand it. Somebody got to pay the bills, but you got to spend time with these kids. You got to figure out a way to spend, you know, she had the Harry Chapin Cats in the Cradle conversation with him. And so my father was like, well, if that one likes movies, I'll start taking him to the movies more and shit. And because of that, like, I got to sit next to a person who I knew as my father in the 70s and the 80s. We didn't have close relationships with our parents. They were just respected. They were people on pedestals. They were role models, figureheads, more so than close relationships like we have now and stuff. But I got to know that guy sitting in the dark in a movie theater. You'll learn everything you need to know about a human being sitting in the dark in a movie theater, watching them watch a movie and stuff. Tells you everything you need to know about a human being. I got to see not my dad, who was the guy that raised me and I had to listen to, and he said mow the lawn and all that shit and gave an allowance and whatnot. But I saw Don, the guy who was a kid who just liked movies, who liked going out, who liked adventure shit. I remember he took me to see Raiders of the Lost Ark, man. First, you know, it came out very first time and shit. And it was the opening Wednesday matinee. And so my father, very quiet, never really spoke. The whole ride to the movie theater, we don't really talk and shit like that. I'll say something like, hey man, did you see that? I'd be like, yeah, that's about it. We get to the movie theater, we sit down, Raiders of the Lost Ark begins. If you've never seen it, where the fuck have you been? One of the greatest movies ever made, but it's based on the cliffhangers of old and shit. And my father recognized this. And for the first time ever in my life, my father lit up like fucking Christmas and became a chatterbox. Thank God we were the only two people in the theater as a matinee, because the whole movie was like, oh my God, this is a cliffhanger. This is the kind of movies I used to go to when I was a kid with your Aunt Barbara. We pay 50 cents, we see half a movie, we have to come back the next week to see the rest. I can't believe they're doing cliffhangers. This is fantastic. You're having a good time? I'm having a great time. It was like he had done rails off my mom's ass before we went to the movie theater. Let's go to the movies, kid. But that was his passion. He fucking loved that story. He loved that it took him back to when he was a kid. And I got to see the excitement in that fucker's face. Something he never would have revealed on his own. I got to see the secret self, who he was, buried beneath the role that he had to play as my father. So I love going to the movie theater with him, man, because I got to discover him each and every time. I saw my father cry for the first time outside of a funeral. If a relative died, like I saw his mom die and he cried at my grandma's funeral. I never saw my father cry at anything. We go to see Raging Bull. He's like, you like Rocky? You'll love this. They're not the same fucking movie. I assure you. So we're watching this movie, and I remember my first thought, I was like, oh, it's in black and white. Which is funny because I made Clerks years later. And so I'm watching this flick, and it's boring as shit and whatnot. And I go to ask my dad for a quarter to go play a video game, and I look over, my father is bawling. He's crying. And, you know, my father is not a crier. And what is he crying about? Some fake bullshit that's being made pretend on screen. I was young enough to understand, like, this is made up. I mean, yes, it's based on a real story and shit, but this is all made up. And it's making him fucking cry like that? And you're allowed to cry at something that's make pretend? Do you know what kind of fucking permission that is? To see the key figure in your life let their emotions run like that, man? And because of what? Because of some make pretend story? Because the power of fucking storytelling? Because the power of film and art? It's no wonder I wound up growing up to do what I do. And I'm not great at it, kids. You don't have to be fucking great at it, man. You just have to do it. And no one's going to ever do it for you. So if you've ever sat in a movie theater like I sat with my old man, looked up at the screen and felt a calling, like felt like, yeah, I don't know, man. There's something. I don't just watch movies. I think there's something more to it. I assure you, that's the call. I've heard it myself. And it took me an entire lifetime to identify it and shit. But the Muse is calling you, not Jason Muse, the Muse, M-U-S-E, man. Come make pretend with us when we come down here to do this thing, man. It's the Creative Empowerment Program. It's good shit. You're about to watch, after all this, you're going to be like, my God, I bet you this movie's going to be good. Not really. I'm a much better talker than I am a filmmaker, and you're going to see that very soon and shit. But, and this is not me throwing anybody under the bus, you do have to remember, we made the movie with kids. So, you know, it's got some rough edges and shit like that. I'm not blaming them. I was the one in charge. So if it has rough edges, it has everything to do with me. But forgive us. We weren't necessarily trying to storm the box office or win awards. We just wanted to see if we could pull off Creep Show together. And I think we did. So we'll watch it, and then afterwards we'll do a Q&A, all right? In the meantime, enjoy Killroy Was Here!